everybody, and welcome again to Drunk Uncle Radio on the Junkdrummer TV network, here on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen to it. We're probably there. Look us up, would you? Drunk Uncle Radio. Like, share, subscribe, comment, please. Serve the algorithm. Help us out a little bit. Anyway, here we are, the holiday episode.
Merry Christmas, fellas!
Yes. Yep. Merry Christmas.
Happy Festivus all.
Happy Festivus.
Oh, man, there's going to be some
Hanukkah.
There's going to be some feats of strength at the end of this episode for sure.
Oh, I hope so.
I've got some problems with you people.
A Crimbus. I don't know. I don't know about all you guys, but I'm a Christmas man. I love Christmas, and I'm just immediately walking around singing Christmas songs like as soon as Thanksgiving's done, or really even during the day at Thanksgiving. I'm singing Christmas songs.
Just starting to warm up for it.
Oh yeah, I love it.
As soon as you see a Walmart Christmas advertisement, you're ready.
The Macy's Day Parade, that's all Christmas.
Yeah, it is. I love Christmas. Dude, I'm such a 12-year-old when it comes to Christmas.
So is Thanksgiving just like the warm up for Christmas? Is that just to sort of get your stomach stretched out, get your fireside sleep capability, your sleepometer extended so you are fully ready to completely vegetize and chill at the Christmas holiday?
Oh, yeah, dude. I date a chef, so like I'm just getting fat, dude. It's nothing but Christmas cookies. Jimmy, I bet you got some Christmas cookies.
Oh yeah, no, I have to try to control myself, and it's so difficult because the Christmas cheer comes in. You're like, oh yeah, it's time for hot buttered rums. It's time for cookies. It's time for bread. It's time for all the things that expand me and my spirit. But it's fine. I mean, I love, like I said, I love Christmas. I love singing Christmas songs. I used to carol sometimes when I was a kid. Not all that much, but we did go carol. It was still a thing. And I think old Junkdrummer here, I think he has caroled.
I definitely have. We definitely, in another time of my life, I would go with my grandmother, who was the choir director at the local little church in my hometown. She played the piano, and then on special occasions, she would move to the left side of the church and play on the organ. And that was for like Advent, for like real, that stuff. But yeah, we would go and we would carol for the shut-ins. I've caroled. I knew Jimmy had. Have you all caroled?
I personally have caroled. I went to a Presbyterian church in downtown Charleston, West Virginia, when I was a kid. We went to that church because it was the hot choir in town, and my parents were both choral singers. And so we fucking caroled.
Dude, you all were like
fucking 60 of them.
You were handing out parts and shit. This was just like a little Baptist church. Everybody was singing in unison.
You know what sucks though is that like the Pope can't come to your church. You can be like the hottest band in town, but it's not going to be like Sister Act hot.
John, that is such a story of a guy who grew up with musician parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's got the best alto section to get those oohs?
And let me tell you, that choir was great at doing sacred music, given the climate we were all in, but there weren't a whole lot of grease in that band, so to speak.
It's Presbyterian. That's kind of the whole thing. It's that. Yeah. That Calvinist stoicism,
Right, that's the word. That's what I was just thinking of.
Well, I'm the odd man out here because I never, ever caroled. Growing up where I did, like it's not as rural as like where you're from, Jimmy, obviously. But I couldn't tell you like one family I even know in my hometown that caroled.
I think it's still just a small rural thing or a big city thing. And you're from like a smaller town.
Like I feel like they would probably be caroling like in the rich segments of Franklin.
Yeah. So that would be where I think those would be the two places that you would carol. Man, I love Christmas music. I think that Christmas music is music operating at its highest level. I think I said this in the last episode of when music triggers memories and feelings, and it's all about kids. Like what's great is Jimmy and Adam, you all have kids and you all get to have like a more fun Christmas.
Well, man, it's great. Yeah, it's great because it's the thing that's always great about being a parent is you you not only get to try to make like maybe the things you didn't like about parts of your childhood or something, and you want to try to help your kid not have to experience that. And sometimes you'll fail and sometimes you'll succeed, but it's also like you get to relive your childhood kind of all over again, but through like a different set of eyes. So you get to kind of show them the things that you enjoyed, and they'll find some of the things for themselves that they enjoyed, but you get to experience that excitement all again. Cause it's like when I was in my 20s, I had my first kid in my late 20s, but like in my early mid 20s, it was like, you know, I mean, I still loved Christmas myself, but it felt very different and a little more morose and a little colder, and some of the life kind of got sucked out of it. And then once you get kids again, it just like it pops it right back up, and everything's just, you know.
Yeah. And then Christmas songs are the greatest, or the beautiful soundtrack for that shit.
Oh, it's a beautiful soundtrack. Well, I mean, if for no other reason than it's commercial pivot, say, well, like Christmas and the holidays, they're too commercialized. Like, I don't care. It's still a driving force for wonderful music. I don't care.
Yeah, it is. It's like I said, man, it's the you know, I used to go to my mama's house and at Christmas time a lot, and she would always have these 2 cassette tapes that was just a grab bag of Christmas songs. And anytime I hear any, and you know, it was like Burl Ives and Bing Crosby, plug. You know, when I hear those, it takes me back to that thing. And that's what music is, man. That's what music does at its highest level. And I think a lot of times where, you know, we're musicians, we can kind of get caught up in like, I got to get my shit in. I got to get all my shit in. And you're not thinking about, let's make a piece of art that frames a time and a moment for somebody. And that's music. And that's what Christmas music is for me, is it's music operating on its highest level. It's what we talked about last week when we were talking about Jim Croce, and Adam was kind of coy about like, oh, well, you know, the Jim Croce thing was remind me of my dad's like, that's exactly, yes, that's fucking what music does.
To kind of piggyback on Jimmy talking about reliving memories and everything through your kids. Aside from, you know, recreating like some of the actual gifts that my dad gave me, like building them a train set, which I did last year. The other cool thing to watch is how they take in Christmas music in particular. And, you know, every kid loves Jingle Bells, all that stuff. But recently, my oldest boy, he's actually addicted to my buddy JD McPherson's Christmas record, Socks. So he loves hearing that song, Hey Skinny Santa, and, Bad Kid. But
what's the setup for Skinny Santa?
So it starts out, you know, hey Skinny Santa, how's it looking? That 32 waistline, you better get cooking. And so like it goes through 32, 42, 52, and then 99. That's when he's like,
oh, that's like Santa's on the bed, and Mrs. Claus is like just enabling him in all the worst ways.
Santa has become a sphere.
Santa needs someone to shame him.
Santa gonna need to be buried in a piano box. Cut the wall out to get Santa out.
You know, myself with the rag.
Throw a rag on a stick. Get Mama's prying board. I could just about do it with the way Little Debbie is. Like with Christmas tree cakes, I could just about probably gain a solid 100 pounds on Christmas tree cakes if I was given the chance pretty easily.
I've purchased 3 boxes so far, and it's only December 16th.
Well, that's only what, like $2?
Yeah, that's the thing. They're so damn cheap. I bought my first 3 boxes tonight when I was at the store because my local neighborhood grocer, well, it's Kroger, but my store had them promptly or preeminently displayed in the middle of the aisle for all to marvel at and purchase.
They know our soul. They know what we want.
Yeah. Well, man, we loved them so much. I know you all probably remember this, that at our wedding reception, because we had to pay for everything and we had like no money. So it's like, well, nobody's going to have any food. All we can do is desserts. And then it's like, well, dessert's going to be a Christmas tree made out of Christmas tree cakes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, when is your
The 18th.
Anniversary is, oh, yeah.
The 18th. Yeah, my grandparents was on Christmas Eve, actually. They got married on a whim in Concord. Steve, you'll remember where that is.
Oh, yeah.
At Concord, they were like, well, I guess we may as well go ahead and get married. But then to come back to caroling, they were like, well, where's the parson? It's like, well, he's out caroling. I think he's in Concord somewhere. So they had to run around Concord and find him, and found him at a friend of theirs' house. And then they just got married there at the house on Christmas Eve.
So was that the reason why you all got? Because I always thought that was weird to get married in December, which I don't know anything about.
Well, no, I mean, maybe subliminally, but really it was just because everybody gets married in June or April, and it's just like, just get married in December. It's like, it's fine too. It'll be cheaper for most places because any place you try to rent around June is going to be crazy that you'd have a wedding at. And then we just wound up using the church anyway. So.
And you all got like 4, 5, or 6 inches of snow that was on the ground for your
like
wedding. That was
inches.
awesme. Yeah,
it was kind of a lot of snow for that area.
Yeah.
No.
The week before that, for your bachelor party,
Snow.
it was fucked. 8 inches of snow.
What'd you say, Jones?
The week before that, for the bachelor party, though, that's when you had
God.
like 8 inches of snow, and
That was a mess. That was a mess.
That was a mess.
If you all want to see pictures from his wedding, we're going to have those on our Instagram. So please go check out our Instagram and our Twitter, and you're going to see some young drunk uncles. And no, the guy that looks like Jimmy isn't Jimmy. It's actually Jimmy's brother. But yeah. How long ago was that?
Well, this 10 years this year.
Oh, shit. We're old, fellas. God damn.
Yeah, my brother, who sounds pretty much exactly like me and acts pretty much exactly like me.
We'll eventually have to have him on here.
Oh, yeah.
Let the Likens brothers go hog on the internet.
Yeah. Have to brace yourself.
Then we'll get banned.
Maybe.
That might be the episode that the three of us just sit back and watch.
Oh, yeah. Just beat Jimmy. Oh, or Jimmy and Jason. Oh, my God.
Just take calls.
Y'all, for sure.
From nobody. But we'll take calls.
So we here at Drunk Uncle Radio have decided to play for you all some of our favorite Christmas music because we love Christmas music so much. And we have a very special guest who's our second guest so far. And here comes Sasha Colette. So my longtime employer, my songwriting buddy, and my longtime bandmate, Sasha Colette. Welcome to Drunk Uncle Radio, Mama.
Hey, fellas. It is a pleasure to be here. So good to see all of you guys.
It is a pleasure to have you. John has actually played on all of our records. He's been the keyboard player on all of our records. Somehow Jimmy and Adam has not played gigs with us yet. Although, Jimmy, you were about to a couple months ago. Sasha, we are going to set up the Christmas song that you sang for us. But before we're sang with us, but before we do that, we were all talking about what music and Christmas music specifically means to us. And we're all big Christmas nerds, obviously. What does Christmas music mean to you? And tell us some of your favorite Christmas songs.
Music brings an emotion to just about everybody. But Christmas season in general just puts you in a dreamy state almost, especially around here. We're not in Florida. It's not sunny and you can get out and go walking like you do every other day. So, I don't know, it just puts you in a dreamy perspective and makes you think. It makes you imagine a little bit more than you already do. And I imagine a lot. But I don't know. Everybody decorates and people hang Christmas lights on their house. That's weird, right?
It is.
So even like the Scroogiest people hang Christmas lights on their house. So I don't know. Christmas music kind of helps you believe in people a little bit more. And everybody singing, whether it's in unison or doing parts. Like I went to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade once and I cried a little bit because it was so awesome because everybody was so happy all at the same time. And that's sort of like Christmas. Everybody is so happy pretty much all at the same time. And even if they're not happy, they're going to watch It's a Wonderful Life, and then they're going to be happy. So it works out well.
That's what I think I like the most about Christmas is, especially the way the world is. We're not going to get too much into that, but life can be such a struggle, and we can deal with existential dread. But we've all decided as a society that for 1 month of the year, we're all going to be brothers and sisters, and we're all going to be fucking nice to each other, and we're all going to be a little bit cheery, more cheery than you usually would. And that, I hope that doesn't sound too naive and earnest, but I think it's my most favorite thing about Christmas is that we've all decided collectively, without having a meeting, that this is the time when you're going to call that friend that you haven't talked to in a while. And you're going to make sure that you see your parents because you don't call your mom enough. And it's like we've decided that December is this beautiful time to act right and be a little bit better than the rest of the year.
Steve, you act right.
Well, as much as I can, but then January comes around.
Yes.
I will admit, though, December always brings out, like, especially when I lived back at my ex-wife's house, putting up your Christmas lights and stuff is always something I've loved doing because my dad always did it, and I'm a nerd about designing shit anyway. But I do that, but my biggest satisfaction, like my jerk-ass neighbor, I'd be like, yeah, eat it, Ben.
Little knot in these, Russ.
Yeah.
I love it.
I always feel like it's that one of the few times a year also. I mean, when you have any kind of really happy memories and stuff like that, there'll always be sadness, with the ones you lose that aren't there anymore. And you think about those people maybe a little more than you'd normally do because so many memories are tied to it. But it's to me too, it's also like a constant reminder that, what's that movie Inside Out? It's like sadness is an important part of happiness because you've got to learn to control it and you don't know what you have otherwise.
Without one, you don't know what the other is.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that's another part of that Christmas thing is like, oh yeah, here's, I probably maybe don't think about my Uncle Mike enough, but I always do around Christmas because I remember he was my cool uncle and he was the cool drunk uncle. And and I just remember being a kid and me and my cousin Joey being like, Mike's here. And he was a musician, right? So he was the cool hip guy, right? My dad, working blue collar working guy, but here's Mike. He just came, he played a gig yesterday in front of people and he's here and like, oh, I get to see Uncle Mike. So it's like that's another beautiful fucking part about Christmas is it's a built-in chance to remind yourself of those good things. You know what I mean? And you get to you get to honor them and stuff, man. I love Christmas. I'm such a 12-year-old when it comes to Christmas. So Sasha, we decided as the Drunk Uncle Radio podcast, and when we get behind our instruments, of course, we're called Slate Dump, the greatest band that never was.
That's right.
And you came over to the crib and you like the total pro that you are, laid down the Brenda Lee classic. Okay, Jimmy, who wrote it? Because I know you know.
Oh, I don't know who wrote it.
Oh,
shit. I guess I could look it up. It wasn't Brenda Lee.
It's the same guy that wrote Run, Run, Rudolph. Johnny Marks.
Oh,
no shit.
Yeah.
So in case you didn't know, and you'll notice this as we go along, Jimmy has a dictionary when it comes to like all things music. And that's probably the first time in like 6 months that Jimmy didn't know who wrote a song.
Yeah, I can't believe I got one on him. That's amazing. Yeah,
no shit. That's a new one, right? It's like, I got one that Jimmy didn't know.
Of course, he's got his phone out, though, and I'm about to be wrong.
Johnny Marks. It's right.
All right.
There you go. So Sasha came over and sat in front of stood in front of my Christmas tree and laid down the Brenda Lee classic Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. We're about to listen to that. You came over and like a total pro, you did it in 2 takes, which is good because I'm the terrible engineer. And if it went any longer than that, I would probably fuck it up. So had you sang this before? Have you done this?
A lot. I've played. One thing you may not know about me is that I have played so many Christmas gigs. And I mean, like you talk about the long 4-hour bar gigs. Oh, yeah. I have played some 3-hour straight through Christmas gigs. And it's like,
Without repeating?
No, that's what I was going to say. I tried to have enough songs to where I wouldn't repeat them. But I would typically, I don't know, I'd repeat maybe 6 or 7 of them. The Grinch being one that I would maybe play 2 or 3 times because that one's fun.
My
and everybody
God.
likes it, and they don't see it coming, you know?
Oh, dude, make a note, you 3. Next year when we do this, we're definitely doing the Grinch with Sasha next year. Oh my God.
That was Thurl Ravenscroft, the guy that sang that. That's the guy that did Tony the Tiger.
Hey, you can't forget
There's that dictionary.
Jim. There he is. There he is. So, Sasha, before we unleash this hot track out into the world, give us a little summary of like what you're going to do this Christmas. Or what Christmas means to you, and tell us some of your favorite Christmas songs. And I think I can guess a couple because me and Sasha have been playing together for about 10 years, and I know her well.
How about we go ahead and start with you guessing a couple? I would like to know.
I would guess that you love Silent Night.
No.
What?
It's too slow.
I thought
You are one of the best
guess.
balladeers in the business.
No, if anything, if it's going to be a slow, beautiful song, I'm going for Oh Holy Night.
Okay. That would have been my second.
But Silent Night's pretty, but it's so slow. My mom really got it in my head years ago when I was writing songs. She was like, you need to write some faster songs. And I was like, burn, because it was after a gig. And they didn't really come to gigs very often. And so now I'm like traumatized. I'm like, it's too slow. It's too slow.
It sounds like your mom was your drummer for a little while.
Yeah, that's right. Still is.
I remember when I first started playing with you, Sasha, and I'll say this now that you're my favorite gig that I've ever done. We did the first couple gigs, and I was just like, okay, we can't do these 4 ballads in a row.
I had no concept of that. I was like, love this song. Let's play it. What can I say?
And also plug Sasha Colette and the Magnolias. We're going to link her YouTube channel in the description. And I am one of those Magnolias, along with 3 other fantastic fellows as well. We're going to have a new record sometime, because it's finished. John played keyboards on it, and we don't know what to do until the world opens up. So once the world opens up, we're going to get what I think is the best record that we've ever recorded, Sasha. I'm so proud of everything on that.
It's real beautiful. I mean, like I listen to it and I think, really?
Yeah.
Really? Same thing. Like I listened to Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree and I was like, really? Because I'm all, you're your own worst critic, And I was telling Steve, I was like, better vocal takes in my life, but that one will work. It's fine.
John, I became you during this session because the second time she says boughs of holly, she kind of slows down and speeds up, does that gospel.
Oh, yes. I heard it. It's fantastic.
Well, I had to talk her into it. She's like, I want to do it again. I was like, no, Sasha, this is gospel. That's a gospel trick. We like that shit. We're going to keep that in. Because you were being me 5 years ago. You were trying to make everything perfect. And like, dude, and when you all you're about to find out, when you all did the Raycon of senior singers underneath it, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. Well, I listened through it and I was like, oh, it's like you wrapped it in paper and put the biggest, prettiest bow on it ever. And it doesn't matter what's inside. You're excited to open it up just because of the wrapping. So I was real stoked when I heard it.
So that is a perfect setup for, here is Slate Dump along with Sasha Colette of Sasha Colette and the Magnolias. And here's us doing Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree.
Christmas tree at the Christmas party hall. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop. Rocking around the Christmas tree, let the Christmas spirit ring.
All right. Well, you just heard the wonderful Sasha Colette of Sasha Colette and the Magnolias, of which there is one with the lovely reindeer sweater on, doing the wonderful Brenda Lee classic Rock Around the Christmas Tree, written by Johnny Marks, as John pointed out. Thank you, John. So then we did another one. We went ahead. We said, we love Christmas so much. We can't just do one. We've got to do two. We would have done 5 if we could, but we just don't have time for that. We're play pretend busy people. So
we have motorcycles to fix.
Exactly. So we did the great Chuck Berry classic that is actually called Run Rudolph Run. Everybody calls it Run Run Rudolph, but it's actually called Run Rudolph Run, which I didn't know. I didn't realize until I was looking at it and I was like, Run Rudolph. Oh, he didn't say that. And what is it? What is it? John had been talking about, like he says a reindeer named Randolph.
Yeah, he just pulls one out of thin air in the middle of the first verse there. Like I said, the legend has it that it was just a utterance of Chuck Berry, and that's the take that went to the press for that album. And there you go.
Well, that would make sense. Chuck Berry wrote some really interesting songs, and I mean, obviously, rock and roll hero. But that dude was a card, man. That guy was My Ding-a-Ling and all those songs.
Nobody tells Chuck that he's wrong.
No.
No one was going to say there's no Rudolph. There's no Randolph.
That's the man that told Keith Richards he's wrong. He doesn't care. So anyway, here it is. Here is us, Slate Dump, the greatest band that ever was, performing the great Chuck Berry classic, Run, Rudolph, Run, in parentheses, Run, Run, Rudolph.
The mastermind. Run, run, Rudolph, sticks it ain't too far behind. Run, run, Rudolph, Santa's gotta make it to town. Santa, make him hurry, tell him he can take the freeway down. Run, run, Rudolph, wheeling like a merry-go-round. Singing Santa to a boy child, what have you been longing for? All I want for Christmas is a rock and roll electric guitar. So away went Rudolph, whizzing like a shooting star. Run, run, Rudolph, Santa's gotta make it to town. Santa, make him hurry, tell him he can take the freeway down. Merry-go-round. Come on, Jimmy. Freeway down. Run, run, Rudolph, wheeling like a merry-go-round. Santa to a girl child, what would please you most to get? A little baby doll that can cry, sleep, but drink can't wet. Then away went Rudolph, whizzing like a saber jet. Run, run, Rudolph, Santa's gotta make it to town. Santa, make him hurry, tell him he can take the freeway down. Run, run, Rudolph, wheeling like a merry-go-round.
So there you go. That is the band that never was, Slate Dump or the Drunk Uncle Radio podcast members doing Rudolph Run.
Rudolph runs from Randolph.
Yes, that's it.
Randolph's Run.
So when I was learning this song, because I had to learn it for this one, and then actually me and Sasha did it for another live stream thing that we did. When we were kids, the oldies was 50s, 60s, 70s. Now in 2020, fuck you, 2020, you know, oldies is 80s, 90s, like late 70s, because Fleetwood Mac's still everywhere. 80s, 90s, 2000s. Have we reached a point where that original rock and roll, Bill Haley and the Comets, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Elvis, Carl Perkins, that it's become irrelevant and it's going the way of like classical music, where it's not so in the zeitgeist and the social conscience like it was when we were kids? Have we reached that point where Chuck Berry is not being listened to by people who want to be punk rock? And if you want to be punk rock, you should fucking listen to Chuck Berry.
So Chuck Berry is, I think we can all agree, he's an incredibly influential guitar player. I mean, he's basically the first to do what he did. But we're talking late 50s, if I'm not mistaken, late 50s, early 60s. That is 60, 80 years ago.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
And so just in generational procession alone, it's 20 years, 15, 20 years, I think is the standard for what is the new generation. You have the first generation of kids that learned how to play guitar listening to Chuck Berry. Then you had the next generation of kids that learned how to play guitar listening to the Cats, that learned how to play guitar listening to Chuck Berry. And so that's folded in there. You do that 4 or 5 times, and I mean, look at any art form and you can see the influence be assimilated into the art like that. And so, I mean, I don't think you can say it's irrelevant yet, but boy, it is fading into obscurity. Yeah. It's fading. It's maturing into what it will become.
You can even think of other artists in that same era that don't get as much recognition as Chuck. Like, a lot more people can like the layman, not, and obviously all of us here know, but the layman that only knows like Run Rudolph Run, like, oh, Chuck Berry, but who's that Bo Diddley guy? You know?
Oh shit, that's big, man. Go ahead, Adam Jones. You're right.
No, I was just trying to kind of think of like the deeper dive into some of those older artists of that era, but they were all like right there. You know?
It's kind of funny too, because in some other genres, maybe it doesn't exist quite as much as it does in popular music, but in times it did. And by that, I mean, like, I guess, classical music, it's pretty routine to play stuff that's 200-300 years old. And that's probably the stuff that gets the most play, I would assume. And it's harder to be a newer classical composer and get a lot of, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody in the comment section, somebody could tell me different, but it seems like it's harder to be a newer classical composer and get a whole lot of traction when you're competing with Mozart and Beethoven and Bach. When some of these guys, like take Bach, for instance, Bach was forgotten for pretty much 200 years. He was a local kind of guy. I mean, back in those days, it was like wrestling. It was like territories. And so he worked for the royals of the area, and he did that. And his music was court music, and it was in the churches there in that place. And then it was stashed away and forgotten, and nobody knew who he was until I can't remember which composer found a bunch of manuscripts of his in the 1800s, really. And then all of a sudden, Bach becomes this, big force, but he hadn't been relevant at all in 200 years. He was completely forgotten.
I definitely missed that part of music history class.
I sure as hell did too. That is news. I gotta go look at that. That's wild.
Yeah, it was just gone, and it's still not much is known about like Bach's personal life. Really, they know the music, but he became one of the most influential people, 100 or 150 or 200, however many years it was after he died. He just was pretty much unknown outside of the little courts. But it's interesting that he went on to be so influential, which I think maybe there are some people that just, they are so influential that they can't help but be relevant in some way, whether you realize it or not. And I think that is a good motion into our Drunk Uncle Radio deep dive.
That's a good one.
So who we're talking about here is one of the great guys. He's really the guy you kind of think of probably first when you think of Christmas. I mean, you think of Nat King Cole, you think of Sinatra a little bit, you think of Rosemary Clooney a little bit, you think of some of these characters, Mariah Carey, even you think of Mariah Carey and that weird Paul McCartney song and all that stuff. But I think the person you always think of the most when you think of Christmas is old Der Bingle, Mr. Bing Crosby.
Yes.
It's kind of too bad in some ways. Not really, but it is kind of too bad because most people now, even people that are pretty well-versed musicians or at least music listeners, still kind of think of Bing Crosby as a Christmas singer. I mean, for good reason in some ways, because White Christmas is the number one selling song of all time. It's over 50 million.
More than Friends in Low Places?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
The thing is, what maybe, and this is the thing, is that now we're so far removed from it. I mean, his career began 100 years ago now, about 1923. And when Bing Crosby was at his most popular, is before charts and sales were even really kept track of all that well, and there were different ones.
When he first came out, John, you probably will know this. How long had we been able to record music?
I mean, that depends on what your definite. We've been able to record music for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not talking about piano rolls.
But you're talking about something that can be commercially played back.
Yes.
And I should know better.
Jimmy, what do you think?
I'm going to say the teens, maybe just a little bit before that.
Would that have been 78?
Phonograph, yeah. Or
before then, it was cylinders. It was like Edison cylinders were the first thing you would have gotten. And that was, I don't know what year it was. It came out very, very late 19th century, early 20th century. It was still a very new technology. I mean, when he started, you're still doing the thing where you're cutting to lacquer. So you're singing into a big megaphone looking thing.
1896 to 1915 was the cylinder era. Mm-hmm. So turn of the century is based. So, right around the time Bing was born. He's born in 1903, I think.
1903, yeah.
Yeah, so right around the time he was born, we started to be able to reliably and repeatably record and reproduce audio recordings.
And would that have been around the time when it became like an artist centric? You're going out of your way to get this singer. So like when we were talking about cylinders, and man, we're really dating, and I'm sure all of you millennials out there know exactly what we're talking about. But it was probably been right around the era of, I'm going to get this Bing Crosby acetate.
Well, yeah, I don't. He came in at a really interesting time, like right at the crux of a technological advancement, which are these things. Microphones were really becoming a thing. And before then, guys like Al Jolson and all that, they were belters really, or opera singers. They were trying to project to the back of a room because they had to. Acoustically. And then in comes these guys like Bing, probably the foremost of them, and later on like Billie Holiday and singers like that, and they developed their styles really around the microphone, and that's that crooner sound. They at the time they wrote of it, they said it was a distinctly American thing, and they called it singing in American because it was conversational. It was intimate. It was close to you. There was proximity. You didn't have to yell anymore.
We had dynamics in vocals for the first time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in opera, there's plenty of dynamics, but it's the amount of volume you can get is just not important. It's how much you can put into this space and how you can work this thing also, and you know, how can you get in and get out. But he was from Washington State. Like a kind of little quick run up on him. He's from Washington State, where you know you think a lot of these guys are from the Northeast or whatever, but he was from Tacoma, Washington. Then they moved to Spokane, and you know, dad was a bookkeeper, pretty normal, regular upbringing. Went to school, wasn't very studious, dropped out, joined a band as a drummer, actually.
Bing Crosby was a drummer?
He was a drummer first, which is kind of important going on.
But he was a dancer.
Well, the way he sang was so rhythmic and so well. I mean, he would fall behind. We'll see in a couple of these clips we play, but he would drag behind and then come back in, and he understood how to weave in and out of things, and maybe some of that came from his drumming, and from the other influences that he got. But anyway, he kind of works for, you know, in this weird theater circuit for a few years, in and out of different bands. And he joins up with these guys called the Rhythm Boys. And Adam has a clip from the very first film they were in. They were playing with this group called the Paul Whiteman Orchestra, who were the orchestra that played for the opening of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. This is
my shit right there.
This is from a movie called The King of Jazz, or King of Jazz, I think. It's a kind of, the whole thing's like a fever dream.
What year are we talking here?
This is 1930 or 31, I believe.
How long had talkies even existed?
No, Jolson was the first talkie, and that was 22 or 23, not very long.
We can cut it there. I just realized that I didn't think about this earlier, but my laptop's right here. I'll grab it. You would be able to see my screen, but we wouldn't be able to hear the video.
Well, then go ahead and set up max power to Adam
That's
Jones.
what I'm going to do.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Dude, I'm liking this.
Talkie's first one was in 23.
Yeah, it's about one of those.
Such brand new technology.
Yeah. I've got my big Google machine over my little Google machine here.
Dude,
So what was the first? What was it? Was it the Jazz Singer, the first one?
The Jazz Singer was the first talkie, Al Jolson.
What was that technology? Like, how were they able to match?
It was the first
Sound
time
with
sound on film. You're talking it. It basically, there's the audio, the audio data is that it's a special proprietary tape that has to be read by a proprietary head that has both a film projector and a magnetic pickup on it. And so the audio is striped right beside the frames on the actual film. So that was the advancement that led to that.
Yeah, it's not like magnetic tape as we know it, which we're going to get into.
Oh, yes, we are.
You're going to find out just how big Bing Crosby was.
That's what she said.
Oh,
So,
I bet that wasn't true.
but so the technology that gave us, Ampeg tape is different than that. Ampex tape is different than that sound slide that was on.
No, not at all. That tape, it basically, sound on film is basically some Ampex tape bolted onto the side of the picture film.
Okay.
And so there's a modified player that reads it, or there's a specific player that has both the film projector and a little tape head right there that picks up the sound off of it.
I wonder if there's has that stuff been saved? Was that stuff burned up in the fire?
That big United fire. Yeah, that was wild.
I think there's still some of the original Jazz Singer stuff around, if I recall correctly.
See how I'm telling you, they don't need no band. They time by clapping their hands, just happy as cows, chewing on a cud when the dark feet on the Mississippi mud.
Hey, Bing, this isn't the type of number for this kind of a production.
What kind of a production is this?
A super special production.
Well, I guess you're right. We should get out of the mud, reach for the higher,
and the finer things of life, the silver lining, and the bluebird, and life, and love.
Ah, look at my doorstep, look at my doorstep, look at the bluebirds, look at the blackbirds, look at the good love.
And all the hair.
Look at the
There's really not that much when you look at it
never
close.
saw bluebirds mingle
Oh,
with
yeah.
blackbirds, never saw bluebirds do anything backwards, never knew good love ever could words with care. Now I overheard those birdies talking today, and I know just why they're acting this way.
Maybe I better pick up the thread of the story.
Will you leave?
Okay. First the bluebird said, we've got to have sunny weather.
Yeah.
The bluebirds and the blackbirds got together. Then the blackbird said, oh, we're birds of a different feather. So the bluebirds and the blackbirds got together.
Well, you get the idea there, where these guys got to be super popular, like in the college circuit, really. And this is where Bing got his big catapult. He starts. It's I don't know if it was shady or what, but he starts getting a lot of solo gigs, and people like well, I mean, it's obvious he's the runaway star. He's the runaway singer of the group,
Sure.
and so he starts getting hired out to a lot of other orchestras and a lot of other gigs. Eventually, him and the pianist, I believe his name is Al Rinker, they leave and join another group because they're not getting paid enough. They're getting paid like I think $75 a week at the time.
Yeah, it's good money these days.
Right.
And then so they join another orchestra, and then Bing eventually just kind of takes off on his own, and he gets ginormous. And
So
when
this
Before we move on, it's cool. You can hear, I think we were talking about it earlier. You can hear the remnants of the previous influences, and this comes back to relevance. You can hear the remnants of the vaudeville of the belters, and that you can sit there because they're not. The microphone is by the camera or in the room, whatever. They're playing to the room, and you can hear Bing starting to pull it in tighter and pull his voice in closer to his chest. It's really neat.
Well, and that was a thing. He well, like I say, he started getting bigger, and then he learns about Louis Armstrong and goes to see Louis Armstrong at the Cotton Club. I think it was the Cotton Club. He started playing there all the time, and they're like, "You got to go see this guy. You got to go see this guy," because Louis was a big deal, but he had been like a bigger deal in Paris. It had been the age-old story. Unfortunately, it had happened so many times where a wonderful black musician had to go overseas and get gigantic before they could come back and do it again. And that's what happened. He was huge in Paris, and then came back, is playing the Cotton Club. He'd been in a couple things. He had some records, but Bing hears him and he's like over the moon, loves Louis Armstrong. And he's like, oh, I want my vibrato to slow down a little bit. I want it to be more like that. It became a huge influence on his singing. And rhythmically, and part of that, like the melding in and out, it became very much, very, very influenced by Louis Armstrong, not like copying necessarily, but very influenced. And the same with Louis. Louis heard Bing sing, and he said when he heard him with that smooth bass baritone, he's like, he said it sounded like gold being poured out of a cup. It was just natural genius. So they sort of, like great musicians do, they found each other and influenced each other. And it set up a big relationship where Bing starts getting big. He starts selling incredible amounts of records. We'll get into that. They don't even know how many, but incredible amounts of records. And he gets in this movie, Pennies from Heaven. And so he thinks they want another guy. And he's like, oh, I want Louis Armstrong. And they say, well, we can't do that, for the reasons as they were in the times and other reasons. They didn't like his manager, Joe Glazier, and all these sorts of things. And he said, well, then I'm not going to do the movie if you don't get him. And I want him to have, like big billing too, same as me. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that. So he's like, fine, I'm out, and just walked off. And then he got, Louis Armstrong did get the part, and it wound up being Louis Armstrong's first big bill in a motion picture. And it kind of changed his career also. So Louis helped him, and then he helped Louis, and it sort of cemented a lifelong friendship.
God, I think they were enabling each other to make the future of American and therefore global music better.
And it's this story that you just told is a story that's been played out since then. The first part of it, when you were talking about how he was obviously the star and was getting bigger, and that's fucking Almost Famous.
Oh, yeah.
That's that, right? So he's getting bigger and he's obviously going to be going on to a solo career. And then the idea of someone helping another one out, that's fucking Gene Simmons signing Van Halen.
Well, and
this music business has not changed all that much since like 1933.
And it's also like we can't, I don't think with our understanding, our grandparents, maybe, and our some great grandparents, he was so big. He was so famous, and we can't really fathom it. He was from 1930 to 1954, 24 years. He was the top grossing radio star, top grossing film star, and top grossing like record sales star.
So he was the rock of his time,
but much bigger. He would sell, like, say he would do a song, right? And it expanded to every facet of the business. He would do a song, and the next day they would sell 50,000 copies of the sheet music of that song.
That's the time we're talking about now, that sheet music was as much of a seller for the artist as the recorded version.
Right. Well, they were saying, and I'm sure it happened multiple years, but at least by 1948, you had like 80,000 hours allotted for a week for radio time. You had 80,000 hours where you could do radio music, and Bing was played on more than half of it.
Holy shit.
He was so big. I mean, you get up to, you can't even really get into it. You got to skip over a lot of it. He's like the biggest guy in the 30s, the biggest guy in the 40s, getting to World War II. And he became so synonymous and so popular that they were using him to read propaganda films for Germans. And that's where the nickname Der Bingle comes on, is because his German pronunciations got pretty decent. And he was able to just like say things and saying some, and they got to where they really liked him. And they're like, oh, yeah, there's Der Bingle. And so that's where that nickname comes from.
What was his real name?
Harry. Harry Lil's Cobb.
Not Harold, Harry?
Harry. His dad's name was Harry also.
Okay.
But so he's biggest thing in the world, like by a long shot. And no, being the biggest thing in the world, he's like, well, this is where we're getting into the other facets where it's like how we can't even fathom how much he's sort of developed the entertainment business in general, which is, and I think I'm trying to build a case for saying he's probably, maybe the most, not just a great singer, not just the Christmas guy. He's maybe the most influential entertainer of the 20th century.
Woo.
And that's in a lot of, because it expands so much, I'm ranting, but so you get to, and John will have to kind of correct me on what the years were, but at the end of World War II, they'd found this reel-to-reel broadcast quality magnetic tape recorder that the Germans had been using, and the Germans had developed it sometime in the late 1920s, and they'd kind of kept it way under wraps for a long time. And so a couple of guys that worked for Bing at the time, Bing Crosby Enterprises, they find it, they bring it over. And Bing's big thing is he was doing these live radio broadcasts, and they were a huge pain in the ass to him. He wanted to go play golf. He would want to just record something and take months off. He was never really one to want to work a whole lot. He wanted to play golf and just sing whenever he wanted
to be a fucking slack ass musician like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that was a problem early in his career, is that he just didn't try very hard. Plus, it was just like he was so good, and just whatever, I'll just go do what I do and blah blah blah. Go play golf, race horses, but he wanted to do these things and he couldn't figure out how to do it, and he wanted things to be a great quality. So they bring this tape machine over, and they're like, "Look, we can record this, and then we can cut it and we can edit it, and we can give you a higher fidelity. It can be mastered and be put out. So you're going to sound better than everybody. It's going to sound great. It's going to be edited, and you can go do whatever you want to do." So he invests $50,000, a lot of money at the time. This is the late 40s. Invests $50,000 into Ampex, which was a California-based electronics company, to basically copy this machine. and I guess, kind of do some little things, but basically copy this machine. And it comes out, and and the uses they did of it, like the way they edited stuff, the way they mastered tracks to put it out on radio shows, became the standard for all of recorded music. It's the first time it was ever used. Like magnetic tape in that way is the first time it had ever been used, and it is the standard.
Was this stereo? Was this one channel or two channel stereo?
This is still mono.
Yeah, still mono.
Yeah, still mono. He actually, when he took up this radio broadcast, Philco Radio Time, they started out trying to record it and edit it to discs, to lacquers. They were trying to cut to lacquer, and they just had, you can imagine, knowing what we all know about vinyl and the way it has to be made, even if you're cutting into an acetate, it's just a nightmare to try and do that format on that medium. It would just be insane. And so necessity once again being the mother.
Yeah, and he was like, he was doing things differently than people. Like he would do rehearsals, or he wanted to do rehearsals. He wanted to, and the tape allowed them to do that and to do like time stretching and stuff that people didn't even think of. And so he could do these different, he could record all the rehearsals, and it'd be like, well, the ad-libbing was really, really good here, and I kind of muffed the song a little bit here, but it was really good at rehearsal, and they could just edit it, and it was fine. And now that's just what we do as standard. But back then that was like, you didn't do it.
So you're saying that he is the reason that we have, or, the beginning of our modern recording technology. It all, it came 100%. From him.
Yes, it was because of Bing Crosby's wanting to play golf and be able to just have a really great sounding show and do it the way he wanted it. Not only
innovation because a musician wanted to slack ass. That's music.
And then
isn't that why we automate everything? Is because we want to be less shit.
That's why Pro Tools happened, because we got sick of having to be good all the time. So he decided to.
Bing Crosby is directly responsible for modern digital audio workstations,
and not just the way we record with magnetic tape, like audibly. Bing Crosby Enterprises was the company that financed and developed and then debuted in 1951 videotape for the same reasons.
So he's on the cutting edge of videotape too?
Yes.
So this dude was like Michael Jackson and Elon Musk and of his time.
And Arnold Palmer.
Well, yeah, he had a 2 handicap playing golf. His clam bake tournament that he would put on every year is now what we know as the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, which is one of the biggest events in golf. He was a quarter stake owner in the Pittsburgh Pirates for about 40 years. He was a principal stockholder of Minute Maid.
Yep.
Had financial investments in oil wells and mines. And then that's the kind of the thing I'd be getting to. He made 79 films. He got an Academy Award for Best Actor for was Going My Way, I think, and then got nominated for the same part the next year, playing the same character in Bells of St. Mary's. And he eventually makes like 79 films. They don't know how many records he sold. They have no idea.
So there's a chance that he's the biggest selling artist of all time.
He is the most recorded performer in the history of the world.
More than Garth Brooks?
Oh, yeah. They think that he sold somewhere probably between half a billion and 1 billion records. And if you think about
platinum,
it,
right?
If you think about it, like the Beatles have sold what, 650, 680 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Think about that. It's like over 300 million more if it's at the top end of that. He had, what was it? He did like 2,000 some odd commercial recordings. He had almost 400 singles, over 200 of which were top 10s. He had 41 number ones, which is more than Elvis, more than the Beatles, more than Sinatra.
Is it more than George Strait though?
Well, that's country number ones. That's
number one's the number one, Jim.
That's a different story.
Let me just clarify. Like a billion records sold wouldn't be a diamond. A diamond is only 10 million.
Oh, wow. He's got many diamonds.
God. Yeah.
He only got 23 gold and platinum records because they only started giving them out after 1958. And at that point, his sales were down.
And just like today, he probably made, and just like today, he probably still made 23 cents per sale.
He did like I said, he did over 2,000 studio recordings. He did over 4,000 radio shows. Never mind the TV, the 79 films.
He doesn't sound like a slacking
Steve, that's
musician.
funny that you brought up how much per record he made, because in 1934, after and during the aftermath of the Great Depression, or I guess that's the height of the Great Depression, he is kind of credited with saving the recording industry, because he agreed to go down from I have the clipboard here.
The clipboard.
And is aiding and abetting me in my research. I'm coming prepared. I'm coming in.
And he's also open for endorsements.
There you go. All
5
them.
points.
So so he took he agreed to and sort of helped the process of lowering the cost of a record from $1 to 35 cents, and he agreed to go on a per copies. He agreed to a royalty basis, a per copy sold basis, instead of a flat fee to make the original recording. So he innovated fucking royalties, mechanical royalties as well.
So back in the 40s, it was still $1 and for a record, and now it's 99 cents per. Is it still 90 or is it $1.25? What is it now?
Does it matter? People pay $5 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but you can't pay $1 for a record.
Don't get me started.
He was real funny about that stuff too, because then whenever you'd see him in interviews and they'd ask him like, well, they say you're worth X and X amount of money, which is, in those days, like insane money. This is like the 60s. They say you're worth like $150, $200 million. And he's like, well, I don't know, maybe. The checks just keep coming in. And they ask him, I say, well, do you consider yourself a good businessman then? Do you like business? He said, no, I hate it. I don't like business. I don't like dealing in business. He's like, I sing and play golf. And I've always maintained, he's like, I think I've always considered myself to have a very good ear and to listen. And I listen to people that know better about these things than I do, because what would I know about any of that stuff? It's like, I'm a singer. What would I know about any of that? I give it to my lawyers and my financial advisors, and they invest the money and they put it in those places, and the money just keeps coming in.
Good thing he didn't have Billy Joel's people at the time.
No shit. And if there was enough money coming in that he could pay the right people, yeah, seriously.
And man, that's an episode right there. The musicians have been fucked by suits.
That is an episode.
Adam Jones will have to fucking host that one. Holy shit.
But then it all stems from, maybe Adam, you could pull it up. I mean, everybody always plays like White Christmas and Mele Kalikimanka, and which thing I love about that is he showed a thing he did different, like even Sinatra didn't do. Is like Sinatra never sang harmonies. He wouldn't sing harmonies with nobody. It was
none of those crooners sang harmonies, right?
Bing did.
Okay.
I mean, we could pull up Mele Kalikimanka maybe and do that, but just to highlight, there we go. We'll do a little bit of this one. But when the Andrews Sisters in the middle section, he jumps up and sings harmony. The classic Mele Kalikimanka.
Mele Kalikimanka is a thing to say on a bright,
I love Christmas music.
Christmas day.
So close to the mic.
That's the island greeting
Is like
we send to you from the land where palm trees sway. Here we know that Christmas will be green and bright, the sun to shine by day and all the stars at night.
So far back.
Go far back.
We're gonna get dinged on copyright here.
Probably.
I'll stop it then.
No, take it to the harmony.
Oh, the harmony. It's a little bit past that. It's after the break.
Thing to say on a bright.
After this, there's like a instrumental section.
Right.
That's the island greeting that we send
this
to
part
you from the land where.
That's not Pro Tools, kids.
The second biggest selling act in the 40s was the Andrews Sisters. Bing was number one.
Green and
Yeah,
bright.
they both are.
The sun to shine
You could say
by
that.
day and all the stars at night.
The records help each other.
Mele Kalikimanka is Hawaii's way to say Merry Christmas to you.
Redlining.
Fortissimo.
Everybody here is picturing Cousin Eddie with the
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, and Phoebe Cates in the red bikini.
Hell yes.
Yes.
There he is.
Green and bright.
Yeah, it's after this part he'll jump up.
Shine by day and all the stars.
Because he's singing trios and stuff for you.
Kalikimanka is a wise way
To say Merry Christmas to you.
Little break. Here we go.
Kalikimanka is the thing to say on a bright Hawaiian Christmas day. That's the island greeting that we send to you from the land where palm trees sway.
He jumps back.
Here we know that Christmas will be green and bright.
The sun to shine by day and all the stars at night. Kalikimanka is a wise way to say Merry Christmas.
A very Merry Christmas.
A very, very Merry, Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, yes.
Now, Steve,
So good.
How many hours old or how long ago was it when you learned that they are saying Mele Kalikimaka is Hawaii's way to say Merry Christmas to you? Because being the suburban child of the 1980s and 90s that I was, and not really having a lot of guidance when Christmas Vacation came on the first time, I just thought it was a wise way, a very smart and full of intellect way of saying Merry Christmas to you.
Actually, that's funny because I was watching Anthony Fantano's video of the 5 worst Christmas songs, and one of them was She and Him's version of this.
It's terrible.
And I went and listened to it, and I had the closed captioned on because I was probably watching something British before that. And the closed caption came up, and I was like, I didn't know that. And that version is fucking terrible.
Yeah, that Christmas record has a couple of gems on it, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, so I've learned that actually yesterday or the day
there
before.
we go. Yeah, for me, it was during this whole breakdown of this. Like, oh, it's Hawaiian music, and they're I'm an idiot.
And what's great about that is that's just like SoundCloud rapper shit, because it was Bing Crosby featuring. The music business hasn't changed at all.
No, not really.
It really hasn't.
But it's like, well, yeah, and like artists helping artists out. He was always helping artists out that had kind of been in the down and out, and that still happens. Like, in those days, Judy Garland was like on a really bad stretch in the 50s, and nobody would do anything except for Bing Crosby. He'd bring her out, and he's like, "Hey, who am I to judge you? I don't care." He's like, "You're great. I'll bring you back. I don't care. Come on out."
He sounded just like that when he said it.
Do what you do. No, I don't care what you say. But it all stems just from like all of this empire, and the way he changed music was because he's one of the great singers of all time, and that's something I think maybe, at least to me, it could be a personal opinion. I love all the cream. Like I love Nat King Cole. I love Frank. Bing to me was like a special, once in a generation kind of guy. He's so good. That voice is so smooth. His pitch is so great. His feel is so wonderful. It is so natural sounding. Like, and I'll keep playing clips of people. But Adam, if you could just a segment of like that "Count Your Blessing" song, which is from the White Christmas movie.
Yep.
We got to talk about that because that's how Bing came up today is, doing our Christmas episode. And what's more Christmas than your girlfriend making you watch White Christmas?
This is just audio, so I'll just play it.
Yeah. Great recording, too. I don't hear so much.
When I'm worried and I can't sleep, I count my blessings instead of sheep. I fall asleep, counting my blessings. When my bankroll is getting small, I think of when I had none at all. I fall asleep, counting my blessings. blessings.
I mean, Rosemary Clooney had no shot. Rosemary Clooney was definitely getting got, son. There was no shot.
Those low notes, those scooped low notes. I mean, he's going through an octave and a fifth there, and just in that one line.
Like hitting a piano note.
Oh, it's so crisp and clear. Now, granted, he's 2 millimeters from the microphones, saying that note as quietly as a mouse, but God, who cares? It sounds so good.
It's so good and so natural. Well, good.
Bing's voice is. I've always had voice envy over. You know, I've got a voice like a dickhead, but
me too.
Like, I just always wanted that deep, like, you know.
Dude, I would give up a lot of things. I would give up every drumming ability that I have earned over the years to fucking sing like that.
Well, at least you can rest in the comfort knowing that all it ever got him was everything in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like being probably the richest musician of all time.
It's changing the face of all recorded and live music forever.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because that's what got us to Bing for this Christmas episode is the Christmas. Like, man, your mama will watch this all the time. Your papa will watch this all the time. And it's still played every year. And everyone says, and, you know, Sasha talked about it earlier, It's a Wonderful Life. But if it's not It's a Wonderful Life, it's White Christmas.
You want to know something funny? I've never seen White Christmas.
What?
Adam, have you seen it?
Of course.
Okay. Damn, John.
Yeah.
Are you a mole person? Were you? How did you miss that?
Presbyterians, man. Presbyterians. They didn't take Christmas any more serious than how's the choir going to be?
I've seen White Christmas a ton. One that I hadn't seen until recent years was A Holiday Inn, and
doesn't age well in some parts of it.
That one does not age well.
Parts of it are like, oh, that's great, and then parts are like, oh no.
Uh-oh, is there some social stuff that doesn't age well in that?
I forgot it's 1942.
I was watching it, like, kind of buzzed, and it came up on the screen. I was like,
So that's the movie. That's the movie that everybody talks about. It was the Love Actually of its time. I mean, and if you notice, Jimmy's backdrop is...
I'm in the lobby of the Columbia Inn in Pine Tree, Vermont.
Are you about to have sandwiches and eggnog?
Buttermilk and eggnog. Buttermilk and sandwiches.
My mom drinks buttermilk, and I'd never seen anyone just like
I drink buttermilk.
Just straight buttermilk?
No, I was trying to turn John onto it the other day. You should revisit it. I don't know. If you'd like yogurt, you would really like buttermilk. If you don't like yogurt,
drinking yogurt.
Yeah, it's like drinking like kefir or any kind of thing like that. For people that are into that, it's like the kefir.
A tangy cream beverage.
Mm-hmm.
So
you like Greek yogurt, you'd like it.
So what that movie is for me is showing that era of the all-around entertainer. Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney and the
Peggy
girl
Lee.
Peg. Is that her? Peggy Lee?
It was Peggy Lee, and then Trudy Stevens was the one that sang on, like, her and Rosemary kind of did Peggy Lee's singing parts, if I recall.
But back in those days, man, like Joaquin Phoenix couldn't have survived because to be a star, you had to sing good. You had to act good. You had to dance good. Like that's what that is those people, like, that's musicals, Broadway, right?
Sure.
Broadway
Vaudeville
stars.
and Broadway. Yeah, absolutely.
And then when the movies came, those people were obviously the people that they would use. But man, so much talent that you had to get over back then. Like back then, you just couldn't be like a good drummer and be famous unless you're Buddy Rich or Gene Krupa. Other than that, you're fucked. Like you had to do all this other shit.
You see another trend that kind of died out through time as well is the necessity for musicians to cross over into film, because you had it so much back in Bing's era, and then even through you obviously had Elvis, and then they tried to bring like Roy Orbison in to be an actor, and you saw how that worked out.
Hey, that's a solid Western, fellas.
But you don't really hear about that in like the 70s much, the 80s. I mean, of course you have, modern day people but it's not like not like an actual necessity. Like it's not, here's your deal.
one of the things I think that we've noticed here is how much of a straight line that you can think that because we live in such a, modern society and things are so much different from back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Now that's a thing. Like fucking Ludacris is in the Fast and Furious movie.
Well, there's Jared Leto and God.
Oh, I mean, Lady Gaga in that like eighth remake of.
But that's the thing that's happened more now.
Will Smith has his whole 80s. Rap career.
Yeah, yeah. Like we have the music business hasn't changed all that much. Now there was an era there. Jimi Hendrix wasn't going to be in a fucking movie. Jim Morrison wasn't going to be in a movie, but we've now reverted back to a thing that happened. That's a good point, Adam. Back to the 30s and 40s.
Well, I think so much of that time, like people still remembered vaudeville and they still remembered the Lowe's circuit and they still remembered those stage circuits where the stage and the big show was such a big thing, and early movies kind of played on that. Like that one film where we watched the early Rhythm Boy stuff, King of Jazz. That's basically like an hour and 15-minute music video. It's just all music, just back to back to back to back to back. And we're like, oh, music videos is just brand new thing. It came out and the Beatles were the first ones to ever do it. It's like, are you fucking serious?
What do they say is the first music video?
Oh,
I mean,
like, was it off of Rubber Soul? Like the stuff they started doing around. But even then they were doing movies. They were doing like Hard Day's Night and stuff like that before that.
Right.
Like whole films that they aren't like stage shows necessarily, but they're music based things where they're running around. But it's that stuff has been going on for 40 years.
Yeah. You look even at like Wizard of Oz. That's the huge Broadway style, huge theater style stage shows, dance scenes and stuff in that. And that was the standard for the genre for years.
And in that one, I mean, if anybody wants to take the time to go back and watch an hour long Fever Dream and watch King of Jazz, it's at least fun to watch. Like if you get baked or drunk and want to see something, because the sets they move, that they're physically moving, are gigantic. It's like a football field sized piano that they're pushing around, and like 5 people are just pretending to play keys on. It's big giant clamshell stages that are like 100 times bigger than my house that they're pushing around and moving. The scale was so massive. It's yeah. I mean, the music business hasn't really changed much. It maybe looks a little different and smells a little different or whatever, but it's still the same steak.
That's what I've gotten out of this episode today is like how, as much as you think that's a alien time, it's the same. We're still doing the same shit. We're still selling. They sold records for $1 back then. Selling records for $1.25 now.
Yeah. So I want to get some stuff in here from the clipboard.
Clipboard
some facts and figures.
And this is just I don't really have any figures on here, but I just want to illustrate the scope. Jim, you've come in so hard with all this great deep dive and research. I want to frame just how deep the Bing Crosby influence reaches into Americana, and I mean, given the time period, therefore the globe, because that was when American exceptionalism came to be in the later part of his career, the 40s and 50s. So, Bing Crosby shared the stage with both Bix Beiderbecke and David Bowie.
That's actually Beiderbecke.
Excuse me, Bix Beiderbecke.
I know that because my music history teacher that I was talking about earlier, that I fucking didn't go to enough to find out that Bach was, not
Bach
big at first. Yeah, not Bach. He was from Kansas City, and he played in Bix Beiderbecke's band.
Nice, right?
And he had all kinds of great stories about him.
My really pretentious music history professor at the college that I won't name pronounced it Beiderbecke. So
I know for a fact that it's Bix. Bix.
So anyways, but let us not belabor the point that he shared the stage with both Bix Beiderbecke of the teens and 20s and into the early hot and sweet jazz era, and David Bowie.
Yeah, I think that's what most people who are watching this, that's what you're going to know him from, is that one clip. And I know that kills Jimmy's soul.
Pretty famous.
Well, it's just so weird.
It's so
weird. I will say, I was watching it earlier tonight, and Sarah was in here with me watching it too. That is the least annoying version of Little Drummer Boy I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's the worst Christmas Carol, and it's the least annoying version of it.
When Bing's, because Bing did most of the parumpa pum pums, and that is like the cringiest, most just like inducing thing. When he's singing parumpa pum pum, it was almost hip.
Oh man, well, it's Bang one. David Bowie like refused to do it unless they wrote him a part and they kind of featured him in a better way. He didn't want to sing it, so he had to have that, peace on earth.
What era? Hey, what era were we talking about with Bowie there? You would know.
That's 77.
Is that Thin White? That's after Thin White?
That's before all the crazy shit, isn't it?
That's not. Is that around the Berlin stuff?
I thought that was.
Because when was the Thin White Duke?
I thought that was around Thin White Duke.
That's what I'm saying. That's when
massively,
Bowie was off the wall.
I was just saying he was totally like a schoolboy dressed down for that. So he cleaned his stuff up to come in and be with Bing.
Who is that? There's a dude that's like kind of a crooner guy in England that David Bowie basically copied his style. I can't think of his name. You'll have to look it up. And this guy, I can't. If you watch that one David Bowie documentary that's on Netflix or wherever it is, David Bowie kind of ripped off that guy's vocal style. But man, since we're already here, let's all talk about our favorite Christmas songs. What are all of our favorite Christmas songs? Adam Jones, tell me what your favorite Christmas songs are.
It's actually a Jim Croce song.
Yes, I love you, Adam Jones. I love you so much.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Oh, wow.
That's I don't know.
That's a callback to episode 4. Everyone go check that out.
Yeah, I was just about to say, we've obviously talked about how silky Jim's writing could be, but that song is just puts you on a snowy street.
Oh, that's good shit. John?
I have one favorite. I love them all, and I'm steeped in all that stuff. It's funny because like the Christmas milieu is really the only time I can talk about knowing anything about Bing Crosby. But no, my favorite Christmas song of all time is the Judy Garland version of "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas."
That's a good one. That's a good one. That was on the cassette tape that my mama had.
Yeah, there
you go, man. I would be over there fucking crocheting a Christmas Christmas tree skirt with my mama and
that band, those big, beautiful, dramatic, schmaltzy strings. I just love that. And her voice is just as sweet as a mother's love. It's incredible.
It was the power pop of its day, man.
Yeah, baby. Oh, dude, she had it so good. She was cut too short, man. What a try. There's another, maybe next Christmas we can touch on her a little bit as well.
No shit.
That's a wild ride.
So
it was.
So I'm gonna give mine, and then Brother Jimmy is going to wrap us up with Christmas and Bing.
Yes.
But I don't have a particular version, but like I love Carol of the Bells. That I love that. I've played it a bunch. It's one of the few Christmas songs where I'll play by myself. I'll play.
Ding, fries are done. Ding, fries are done. Ding, fries are done. Would you like an apple pie with that? Would you like an apple pie with that?
It's such a good it's such a good melody.
Oh, dude, it rules. It's got power and drama and pathos and all that stuff. And it's like, it's sad and then it's fucking happy. It's Christmas music. It just rules.
It's everything, man. And you can play in 12/8. I love playing in 12/8 because you can do so many tricks with it. Yeah, Carol of the Bells is my favorite. So, Brother
Very
Jimmy,
nice.
Wrap us up. Tell us your favorite Christmas carol or song, and then wrap us up with Bing Christmastime. And we're going to tell all of our fans Merry Christmas and Happy Festivus.
Well, my favorite Christmas song is actually the most famous version of it is a Bing Crosby recording. It's "I'll Be Home for Christmas."
Oh man!
And I think it, it's schmaltzy or whatever, but I think it brings out. It's kind of for me like a perfect embodiment of that thing we were talking about earlier. He's listing all these things, in the song "I'll Be Home for Christmas" and all these things you think of with Christmas and. It's like, I'll be there. You can plan on me. And then, it's always, if only in my dreams. So it's that sort of thing. Like you have this lusting for this idea of it and what your feeling of it. And it's like, yeah, I'll be there and you can plan on me being there. And here's all the things about Christmas that we all love. And, you know, if it's only in my dreams, that's how it's going to be.
Got a little bittersweet to it.
It's a little bittersweet. And it's like, to me, that's Christmas. Like, you gotta, the best chocolate is bittersweet, and you gotta, that's how it is. And for me, with Bing, I think it's one of these things where there are some things, there are some people, places, whatever. But in this case, people, there are some people that are relevant, whether you want them to be or not, and whether you realize they are or not. They just can't help but be relevant. The force was too powerful, and they were too big. He's sort of still, if not like a sun shining bright down on everything, still warming the planet. He's, some kind of bright star, and you can't help but see it. You can't help but be a part of it. He was too big. And whether
the foundation of everything we do is built on him.
Yeah. And whether or not we realize it, or whether or not people realize it, I don't think matters, because it just is.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether people realize it or not. And there's nothing bigger than that.
And so that begs a question: what is relevance?
Man, that's what we were talking about with the Chuck Berry shit, man. What you said, Jimmy, well, no, John, you said it was, even if you don't know Chuck Berry, even if you don't know Bing Crosby, you're hearing those echoes.
Yeah. And even 60 or 70 years later, a couple generations down the line, I think I sort of leaned more into the relevance is gone thing. But, after all we've talked about, I don't think you can say that. I don't think you can't erase that.
That dude, not that dude, not everything that Bing Crosby did. And man, I didn't know a bunch of this. I now know why you wanted to do this, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. This podcast needed to exist, because there ain't many motherfuckers out there talking about the minutia. Because like you said, most people kind of think of him as the old Michael Bublé. They releasing from cryo freeze at Christmas time and letting him freely.
That's the thing. I mean, like I said in the beginning, his career started nigh on 100 years ago, and it's hard to try to pretend like you can hear what that sounded like with those ears and what it was in those times and what it meant to those people. You'd hear your grandparents talk about it. Oh, well, that's no Bing Crosby, or that's no sense of, like, yeah, whatever. But it's, we don't know. He was so big, we can't even fathom it. That kind of bigness doesn't even really exist anymore. It's a different sort of thing. It's so wide now. Bing was Bing.
The scope of the industry was so much narrower, and he dominated all of it.
Yeah, and to play on John's point, he was also an echo of influences around him and before him. Like say with Louis Armstrong and people like that. He was still an echo of influences before him. He was just so big, it sort of pushed through. And then now, like things fade and it moves on to the next, but there's always still, the remnants of those things that shine so bright that they just stick around. And whether or not we realize it, they're there.
Just saw that I didn't know before, but that he's on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for all 3 radio, recording, motion picture.
3 times.
Well, man, I will say this. I am glad that there are people like Jimmy Likens that are still out there keeping this history of this kind of thing alive, because I like to think of myself as an audiophile, and I heard a bunch of shit today that I didn't know about. And that doesn't really happen a lot with me. So, Jimmy, thank you so much for doing that. That's a fucking great subject that we needed to broach, and especially at Christmas time. So everybody, from the drunk uncles to you and yours, Jimmy, John, Adam, I love you, brothers. I wish I could get to see you for Christmas, but I will not. Everyone, this year has sucked, and we've all done the best we can, but we're in the best month of the year, and we're going to make the best of it. And we hope that you all get to see your loved ones. We hope that you get to see your mom and your dad, your mama and your papa, and kiss them a little harder and hug them a little harder, because we all kind of need it after this year, and we appreciate you all listening to us.
Go find that cousin that's always got Dirty Bird.
There you go. You got to find that cousin that always says, "Hey man, come out here and look at my new car."
Man, hillbilly wedding and hillbilly Christmas. You don't see anybody drinking, but everybody's drunk.
Oh my God! No, that's a Christmas. That's a Christmas memory right there.
My cousin Philip going, "You want to go on a high ride, man?"
Like, why's Uncle Joe always have a cup in his hand? So everybody, thank you all so much. Merry Christmas, fellas. I miss you all, and Merry Christmas to everyone. And we will see you after the first of the year. And here's a big old teaser, because brother Adam Jones is going to spill all of the beans with his workings and goings around with Rush.
Yeah.
We'll see you all then. Thank you all very much.
See ya.